Harper Audio presents Founding Mothers, unabridged selections written and read by Cokie Roberts. Introduction. All of my childhood I heard the stories of my ancestor, William Claiborne, who in 1790 went to work for Congress, where he met the men we think of as the Founding Fathers. At their urging, Claiborne eventually ran for Congress himself, was seated at the age of 23, though that was 2 years younger than the minimum age set by the Constitution. And as the sole representative from Tennessee, he was instrumental in breaking the electoral tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The next month, in a straight political payoff, Jefferson named Claiborne governor of the Mississippi Territory. When Louisiana was purchased from France a couple of years later, Claiborne took title for America, becoming the first governor of the territory, then of the state. Eventually, he was elected to the Senate, but he died not long after at the age of 42. The Claibornes have been active in Louisiana politics in every generation since Williams, most recently in the person of my mother, Corinne Lindy Claiborne Boggs, who served in the Congress for 17 years. It was a story I loved to hear. It made me feel connected to the very beginnings of our government. But for me to feel truly connected, I needed something more. I needed to know what the women in his life were doing while Claiborne embarked on his many adventures. I know that he had 3 wives, and one was a great political asset. Her French heritage helped him defeat a man of French extraction when he ran for governor. But that's all I know. I can pull up William Claiborne's letters to James Madison and Thomas Jefferson online. I've never seen anything written by a Claiborne woman before my grandfather's generation. While the men were busy founding the nation, what were the women up to? Aside from Betsy Ross, I don't remember ever hearing about women as a child. By the way, some of Ross's descendants still insist that she did in fact sew that first flag. My courses in American history provided me with a glimpse of Martha Washington's bravery at Valley Forge and gave a brief account of Dolly Madison's daring rescue of the portrait of George Washington as the British marched on the White House. When the modern feminist movement bloomed in the 1960s, women started passing around Abigail Adams' famous advice to John and his colleagues in Philadelphia to remember the ladies. That was about it. Then my husband Stephen and I wrote from this day forward about our marriage and others in American history. We included a chapter on John and Abigail Adams' partnership that opened my eyes to the key role his wife played in the political life of the second president. Not only did John turn to Abigail for information and advice, she was the person who made it possible for him to do what he did. While he was off in Philadelphia thinking great thoughts, she kept his farm and law business going, coped with the shortages of goods and food caused by war, and cared for the children and the old people, all the while fending off British soldiers. John's advice when Abigail wrote describing the British preparations for war? If it got really dangerous, fly to the woods with our children. Thank you very much. She must have wanted to throttle him. As I read through the letters of John and Abigail Adams and became more and more fascinated with her life, I grew curious about the other women who had the ears of the Founding Fathers. These women lived through extraordinary times and must, it seemed to me, have extraordinary tales to tell. Now I know they do. It's safe to say that most of the men who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, fought the Revolution, and formed the government couldn't have done it without the women. And it was the women who, by insisting that the men come together for civilized conversations in the dinner parties of the new republic, helped keep the fragile new country from falling into fatal partisan discord. The women made the men behave. It's not easy to track down these stories. Though we thankfully seem to have every grocery list the Founding Fathers ever wrote, most of the women left no written traces. Fortunately, some of them, like Sarah Livingston Jay, sent letters home from travel abroad on their husbands' diplomatic missions. And Eliza Pinckney, the mother of 2 founders, was left in charge of 3 plantations in South Carolina at the tender age of 16, and wrote to her father to keep him apprised of the business. Among her many accomplishments was the successful cultivation of indigo in South Carolina, which provided a source of income to the mother country.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?